I think that Black business specifically matters in America for this reason. I don't believe that America will be its very best until Black Americans get their opportunity to fairly operate and compete in the free market.
Welcome to Black Businesses Matter, a podcast about why Black businesses matter and the benefits of collaborating and advocating for Black businesses to drive impact. Each episode, we will cover legacy, hope, Black joy, funding sources, cultural shifts, equity, and so much more. We will provide inspiration and action while spreading some joy to a thriving community of Black business owners and leading thought leaders. Black Business Matters podcast is produced by the L3 Agency, a culturally sensitive influencer marketing and communications firm in Chicago, where relationships are our currency, passion is our profit maker, and people are our bottom line. I'm Larvetta Lofton, your host and founder of the L3 Agency.
Welcome to another episode of Black Businesses Matter. I am super excited about my next guest because this is his first time debuting on Black Businesses Matter, but Charles was featured in my 20th video. So if you want to actually check him out, you can actually go to my 20th video where he is sharing as my mentor, and he says I'm his mentee too and mentor. So I'm excited to have my friend, my mentor, as he says, mentee, because really we're talking about Black wealth. We're talking about real estate. We're talking about making deals. And so when I was building out this particular season, I said, who's the person that should be on the kickoff of this season? Charles Johnson. So I was excited when he said yes, even though he's my friend and I can call him. I knew that getting him on the books to do our podcast was going to be a little challenging, but we got him here and we're excited to have him. So Charles, hello, welcome to Black Businesses Matter.
So first off, thank you, Larvetta. Yes, you are a friend. I would never tell you no. It's a true honor and pleasure to be a part of your podcast. And before we talk about anything that I'm into, I just want to congratulate you on all of your years of success as being a businesswoman, and then specifically a Black businesswoman operating in excellence. So
thank you.
I want to start with that first.
Thank you, Charles. I appreciate it. And just for those that are listening, I didn't pay him for that. So just so you know, he did that from his heart. And I appreciate that, Charles. And you've been on this journey with me. It's crazy because I want everybody to know he serves as the managing partner of the Ideal Group. And we'll talk a little bit on how he got to that place. But before I talk about the Ideal Group, I want to talk about your journey, Charles, your journey. And that's how you and I met several years ago, and how you are considered the deal maker. And I'm so glad that you've termed it, because you are. Whenever there's a deal being held or there's a potential deal that's going to take place, the first person I think about is you, Charles, literally. So I have to say you've been doing that before you even termed yourself the deal maker. You've been doing that. So tell us your journey from where you are to today, being, I think, the most sought out. When I say this, I mean, you don't like attention. We know that. Charles does not like attention. Charles likes to come in, do what he does, and leave. But he is the rainmaker too, Charles. You do make it rain. So I want to hear about your journey of getting to this place as the deal maker and the convener.
So I'll start off by saying, as a young boy, I always wanted to be a businessman. I didn't know exactly what I would do, but I had an aspiration of conducting business because I saw other Black men around me conducting an array of different businesses. And I can remember as a kid, I've tried everything from lawn service to carrying trash out to carrying grocery bags to the car for individuals. Yeah, you name it. I always had sort of an entrepreneurial spirit. And then in high school, people used to tease me because I would, instead of a backpack, I would carry a briefcase. So I would have this little briefcase and I would sort of dress for success. And my grandfather used to always tell me, dress for the job that you want to have, not the job that you have. So I would always envision myself and carry myself as a businessman. And then going to college, I went down to Tuskegee University and I majored in business, marketing, and economics. And then I came back to Chicago and determined right away that I wanted to give my talents to an African American owned business. And my first job out of college was with Luster Products, a African American owned personal hair care company. And I would say there, Larvetta is where I truly got an opportunity to see Black excellence as it relates to conducting business with a legacy at the time, second generation Black owned business that was operating at the pinnacle of success in personal hair care. And I was able to garner a job as a brand manager and then ascended to a senior brand manager responsible for some of the most sought after, well-recognized hair care products and ethnic hair care. And there really I learned everything from concept to completion of developing products, developing pricing strategy, developing distribution plans, retail plans, cost analysis, and really learn not only how to develop a product, but also develop the strategies to have product removed from the shelf. I really credit my first job out of college with giving me the opportunity to really learn a business. And my hat goes off to the Luster family for giving me the opportunity. And shortly after that, I had a tremendous amount of success in that position. And it opened my eyes to, one, what Black excellence looked like in terms of just operating and controlling your own destiny in a business. But then it sort of piqued my curiosity on a larger level to explore different things. And I eventually got recruited by a large international facility and food management company called Sodexo. And at the time, I was recruited to, shall I say, oversee emerging markets, which was Hispanic and African American serving institutions. And while there is where I created the first company where I had a tremendous amount of influence and control. And I approached a guy by the name of Irvin Magic Johnson and ended up doing a joint thing between Magic Johnson Enterprises and Sodexo USA. And at that point, created one of the largest facility and food management companies in the world. And I had the luxury of running that company for 4 or 5 years, ran the revenue up to about 200 million. And then Mr. Johnson then suggested that we do other business together, and we entered airport concession business and some other consulting business. Before I was a founder of my own company, I was a great employee for somebody else. Before I was able to seek clients and persuade them to allow me to have their vote of confidence to do deals directly with them, I did that service for someone else. And I did that because, one, I loved just the art of the deal and being involved in a madrid of different businesses. But at the same time, I knew that in order to be a great general and a great owner of my own company, I needed to be a good foot soldier. So one of the things I just want to tell people too, as I sort of talk about my journey, is that before you think about considering being the head of a company and doing your own thing, just sort of understand and be able to be a good servant to somebody else before you are a leader and responsible for leading other people and having the destiny and the responsibility for other people. Shortly after that, I then in 2010, 2011, thereabout, I took a buyout from my relationship with Irvin. And
Charles, one thing that I want to say, I just want to say this one point because I want people to understand, what is a buyout?
So I'm going to give an example and then I'll give definition. A buyout means that I contributed to a level of equity in the ventures or the companies that was built with Mr. Johnson. And when I decided to depart, he gave me a buyout, meaning a cash exchange for what he thought or what we were able to negotiate the value of what I had contributed and built in those companies. And because of how our deal was structured, opposed to just having a straight sort of employee relationship, it was sort of a hybrid relationship where it allowed me to have some equity in what I had built with them. And so when we decided to separate, because those businesses would have ongoing revenue that I would not have an opportunity to participate in, we had a negotiation. And the buyout, basically, he bought me out of future revenue associated with it. And I basically took an upfront payment in exchange for our separation. And our separation wasn't necessarily on bad terms at all, because we're still doing business together today. But for those particular ventures that were in place that were established between him and I, he paid me out basically an early pay against future revenue in exchange for an early departure on my part.
And so one of the things that I want to just emphasize that I love that you said at the front end was that you graduated from a Black college and went to work for a Black company where you learned everything that you knew that you wanted to be a businessman. So let me learn everything that I can. Do you feel that Black businesses have an advantage of showing their staff all aspects of the business?
Well, here's the thing is, I'll first separate and want to clarify one thing. There are great Black businesses, and then there are poorly managed Black businesses. There are great majority-owned companies, and there are poorly ran majority-owned companies. So I believe that when you have an opportunity to work for a well-ran African-American company, there are advantages that one could take away. For me, you get the opportunity when you work and serve for a well-ran Black business, you get the double-double, what I would call it. You get the opportunity to understand and be inspired by a fact that you have a minority-owned company, specifically a Black company, that, in my opinion, many times they are not set up for success. So when you have one that is thriving and is profitable, you get the opportunity to just be infectiously sort of inspired. You get the creativity that comes along with it, because trust me, if a Black owned business is thriving and surviving and highly profitable, you better believe that leadership has to be 10 times, 20 times the skill set of a majority ran company. So you're going to get all of the creativity and all of the sort of the ingenuity that came along with building and sustaining a Black company, because it is that much more difficult. And then lastly, you're going to get, in my opinion, a different work ethic. What we had to do, in thinking back, even as Sodexo Magic, a majority minority owned company, and Luster Products, which was 100% owned company, just the level of sort of obstacles that you have to overcome in order to get success is just going to make you, in my opinion, that much more of a brilliant mind. So long story short, I say yes, because the challenges are different. The access to capital is completely different. Sort of the challenges to scale are different for various reasons. So I say, yeah, I think that having the opportunity to work for a minority-owned company, and specifically a Black-owned company, it does build you to be different.
Charles, I ask you this question. Who introduced you to Black wealth? Like, when you think about how you were considered the deal maker, and when I think of the deal maker, I think about the man on TV, right? This white man, and that's what he does. He comes in and he makes the deals and he leaves out. And so now I see Charles, and he's coming in and making deals. And so who taught you that equity? Like, for Black businesses, no one's talking about equity. Who introduced you to that?
Well, I have to say, I'm a boy from Southside Chicago, specifically Inglewood, right? And just because I was there, it doesn't mean that I didn't see Black people that sort of controlled their own destiny. There were other businessmen in the community, some legal, some illegal, that at the end of the day had a certain level of influence in control of their own destiny, and I say ownership. And I think that, as to specifically your point, when I was about 12 years old, my grandmother asked all of us around the table, did we know who our great-great-grandfather was? And she's asking this to the kids around for Thanksgiving dinner. And nobody knew what our great-great-grandfather name was. We didn't know anything about him. And her message to us was, well, you don't know who he is because he didn't leave you anything. And to me, that was my first sort of brush with the idea of, in order for me to leave something, to leave legacy, then it's going to be connected to some form of ownership. Meaning I have to own something, and I have to be world class at something. If I'm going to be, world class at something, then I want to own what I do. And then if I want to own what I do, I want to monetize it. And to me, while I didn't as a kid understand equity, And in the sense of ownership, calling it that, I knew that I wanted to control what I did. I wanted to own what I did, and I wanted to be world class at something. And anybody who desires to be world class at something and create something, then of course they want to own it. So I don't want to get caught up in sort of our people having to understand textbook sort of names, equity versus debt and buyout and all those things. What I do want them to be able to understand is and know is one, work hard at something and being world class at it, because every human being was created to do something great. Know your worth, meaning when you choose to sell it in exchange for your talents, your goods, and your services, know that you should get something in exchange and you should get something fair in exchange. And know that if you're going to do that, and you want to be able to create that over and over again, and you want to hand that down to your next generation. Let's keep it just that simple. And so before we start talking about the complexities of understanding how to run a business, the operations of it, the scale of it, let's just first decide that we're going to be world class at something. We're going to create something that solves a problem. We're going to sell it and introduce it to as many people as we can, and we're going to get fair exchange for it. And to me, that's the basis of it before we get into the complexities of sort of how to run a business. And to me, that's how most businesses start. And that's how most entrepreneurs survive. They have something that they're absolutely great at, better than the average person at producing or developing. They then take it to the marketplace and they're very specific about who needs to use it because they're solving a problem. And then they own it. So people who are listening, I want them to basically just understand that in my business, what I do is I create those opportunities many times for celebrated people. Irvin Johnson, Lonnie Rashid Lynn, people know him as Common. I did similar situation for the gentleman you had before, Pastor Hannah, on the nonprofit side, and Irvin Johnson, and there are more. But at the end of the day, what we did together was we decided to do something world class. We decided to target it to a specific audience, and we decided to own it. And owning it means controlling it and monetizing whatever that was to the extent that it created exceptional value and people were willing to pay for it. So now that process is what generates wealth. So, and what we haven't done, to me, in my opinion, as Black people, we haven't necessarily had an opportunity to fully have enough runway and resources to be really world class and scale our businesses. And I think that that's where the conversation is now in terms of, there's a lot of creativity. There's a lot of ability and willingness to work hard. And I think now as a generation, specifically with our generation coming behind us, they're going to be that much more assertive, in my opinion, at taking what they choose to do and owning it. And at the end of the day, knowing their value. I hear more than often than not, people are just leaving jobs, start to be an entrepreneur because they're starting to realize their value and they're starting to understand that it's important for their participation to happen in the free market. And then that is what, for a very long time, we didn't have as people of color or specifically African Americans at owning what we did. We did great work for other people, but we didn't have any ownership in it. And I think that that's where sort of the idea of wealth comes into play. You have to own what you do and you have to know your value and you have to get fair exchange for what you've created.
Charles, the one thing that we've learned over the years is, it's all about entrepreneurship, but we've never heard ownership in entrepreneurship and understanding that. And when you think about ownership, you think about real estate, right? You think about owning real estate, whether that's a home, whether that's some piece of property, but really helping others to understand that you owning your business and owning the legacy that you've created, I think it's important. And so how does that play in real estate? Like when you think, because I know you're also in real estate deals, and I think we only saw wealth in that space of real estate. And I realized that real estate is how we're able to, that's capital. We can borrow from that, and understanding how entrepreneurship and real estate work very well together. And I'll say this, Charles, as someone, when I first started and I wasn't doing so well, I had a condo, I was able to pull some money out, some equity to be able to pay bills. And so that became really an opportunity for me to pay myself when there were not times where I could get paid. And I want to ask you, this intersection of real estate and having your business, how does real estate play in this role of beyond this ownership?
I think we can have a whole segment on sort of real estate as a means of developing wealth. But if I had to just be short and brief in my response, I would say I know a lot of wealthy people, both black and white, of all nationalities and background. And I don't think any of them have built their wealth without having a diverse portfolio of investment, with real estate being a major cornerstone. So the idea of real estate and owning land is important. That's just like if we talked about supply and demand, it's not like there's going to be more land that can be sold. So having a piece of earth is important in terms of owning it. I chuckle sometimes. It's gotten to the point where people are even selling virtual real estate now in the metaverse. That's how just important the idea of ownership is. And I'll tell anybody who's listening, specifically, ownership and real estate for African Americans, it's important. And if you look at, I'll just reference one movie, and this is a common one. People always say, is McDonald's a fast food restaurant that sells hamburgers? No, really, McDonald's is a real estate company. I always say, go back and watch the movie The Founder. That tells the story of basically Ray Kroc. Ray Kroc wouldn't have not been as nearly successful, and the longevity of McDonald's would not even be in play had Ray Kroc not adjusted his business model to own the dirt and then do lease back to the franchisees. A major part of their business, their being McDonald's business, is that they're in the real estate business, not necessarily in the hamburger business. They're in the real estate business first. And then I also look at my personal journey, and this is just in its infant stages. Before I even bought my own first home, I bought a 3-flat building. And people say, well, why would you buy a 3-flat building? Well, I remember when I was first starting out, the money that the bank was willing to lend me on a 3-flat building was greater than the amount of money that they would have lent me on a single family. So I'm thinking back then, if I wanted to buy, when I first came out of college, I wanted to buy a $300,000 single family house, the bank wouldn't have never given me that. But they did give me a credit line for a 3-unit business.
Charles, when you talk about ownership as it relates to businesses, what I'm curious about is how entrepreneurs are becoming entrepreneurs and running businesses, but we've never heard the word to own ownership of owning, your business and your legacy. But then I introduced the way that ownership looks for us is around real estate, right? Sure. Own your real estate, own residential, own some piece of property to help, build legacy. And so what I want to know is, how do you blend that entrepreneurship ownership into this real estate ownership so that it's a blendable business opportunity and ownership? Because we've only heard it from real estate. We've never heard entrepreneurship of just owning. When you talked about equity and you talk about those things, like how does that show up for business owners to understand that piece of ownership?
Yep. So I think I may have said it earlier in the segment that I know very few wealthy people that does not have real estate as a cornerstone of their sort of investment portfolios. And specifically for African Americans, many times before we start a business, our most expensive investment that we'll ever make is probably our home. It's important as an entrepreneur that you have what would you call equity, you have investment portfolio, you have things that are of appreciating value that you could leverage if you needed access to capital. And I remember, even before I bought my first personal home, I bought a 3-unit building. And that 3-unit building enabled me not only to add value or equity to my balance sheet, it allowed my tenants to be able to add to my equity. So, you figure I own a 3-unit building, my tenants are paying rent, and I'm making a mortgage payments. Well, all of those mortgage payments or all of those collecting rent is adding to my equity and the ownership in that piece of real estate. And I always tell anyone, especially a young person starting out, and I look back at my own sort of personal journey, many of the things that I was able to do or to be able to show a robust balance sheet when I went either to the bank to get a loan or having to show a personal net worth and going after particular clients to show, who I was, my personal sort of real estate holdings has always bolstered that, created that opportunity for me. Many times we feel like, okay, if the bank qualifies us, and I'm going into the weeds with this one, the bank qualifies us for a $300,000 single family home, I'll be the first one to tell somebody, make a sacrifice and buy a $300,000 3-unit building first before you go out and buy a single family home. And some people may not be willing to make that particular sacrifice or live like that. I know personally for the first couple of years, Larvetta, I lived way below my means and the means of buying a smaller home, but buying investment properties because there's only so much debt to equity ratio that you're able to get in terms of borrow. I wanted to buy things that created cash flow opportunities for myself. And then when I look back at it, those things right now afford me to make investments into greater things and invest in other larger projects. What now has led me the opportunities to do things on a greater scale from a development standpoint. So yes, the short answer of it is there is a connection between wealth building and making smart real estate purchase. I may have said earlier in the segment is that many times people, they know McDonald's as a fast food restaurant that sells burgers, but really McDonald's is a real estate company first. And I tell all the listeners who have not listened to or watched The Founder, go back and watch The Founder. And McDonald's would not be what it is as a sustainable business if they had not had a business model that leveraged the idea of them being the owner of all of the real estate and the franchisees paying them rent. The more value that McDonald's has is based upon its real estate portfolio and not its ability to sell hamburgers.
I remember reading the book. I can't remember the book, but it talked about McDonald's was a real estate company and understanding he didn't go into business on that premise of making burgers. So I'm glad. But I also think, Charles, how we go into business one way isn't how we end up, right? So when you think about you, Charles, you went from working at Luster, right, to now being a prominent business leader, deal maker for multi-million-dollar deals. And so I think that there is opportunity to say all of that is just a setup to where you are today, which is why I want to say this, because I love this, is that your core message is bridging the gap between those who create and those with a need that produce goods and services that increase the quality of life while maximizing profit. And I had to bring that to the forefront because you unapologetically state profit, right? We're out here doing great. This is amazing, but are we making profit? And I think that's what sets you apart, because when you're making a deal, the deal is for you to make a profit, not for you to be this, oh my gosh, I'm so passionate. This is amazing. And I can say this, Charles, because at the end of the day, when I come with my passion, you're like, okay, but Larvetta, is it making any money? Like, where's the money coming through? And I think that when we think about Black businesses and we think about how they service, how can we unapologetically come in the door showing our profits versus unapologetically coming in with our passions? And not to say that passions aren't important, but I think we get lost in the passion that we can't focus. And I do think, Charles, that is, that's your secret sauce for sure.
Yep. So I'll be the first to say, honestly, we always think about the idea of, man, what am I really passionate about and what do I love? That's different from what I could really monetize and what does somebody really want to buy to solve a need. I wholeheartedly buy into passion. I wholeheartedly buy into do what you love. Now, I'm doing what I love, but in doing what you love, it still has to be a business. It still has to be profitable. It still has to, first rule is maximize return to the shareholders. Like, so when you start a business and you borrow money, and be frank with you, none of those people care about how it's going to make you feel and how passionate you're going to feel. You have to turn that passion into a profitable business. I challenge anyone who says, well, this is my passion. Well, there's a difference between a business and a hobby. I'm not against hobbies. Hobbies are great outlets. They make you feel good. They're used to pass time. I'm all about also non-for-profit, developing mechanisms that you are able to give back and preserve humanity by way of contribution. That's fine. But when we start talking about business, we have to be in a situation where we bring an enormous amount of undisputable value. And then you have to be able to sell that for something greater than what it costs you to produce it and make as much of that and duplicate that several times over. To me, that's business. So I always challenge and say, it's great to be passionate about it. I think the most folks who are passionate and love what they do are the ones who are most successful in business. If you hate what you're doing and you hate who you're serving, then you're probably not going to be good at it. But if you love what you do and you're able to turn that into a business, you're able to monetize that, you're able to communicate it and solve a need, and that's great. And then I'll end it with nothing that I do. I don't do anything, Larvetta, just for money. Like I never did it just for money. For me, I've been able to turn things into businesses that I enjoy doing and things that I believe in and things that solve a problem for someone and then things that preserve humanity. If it doesn't do those things, then it's very difficult for me to be very good at it. And my dad used to always tell me, this is just what my dad told me. I'm not telling everybody because it's not a one size fit all. If you're not going to be the very best at what you do and you're going to not love it, then you should quit because you're probably not going to be the best at it. You're probably not going to be world class at it. And then nobody's probably going to want to buy it for what you want to sell it for if you're basically doing a half effort. So I think it's important that where there's a blend between, yes, being passionate and loving what you do, but you have to convert that passion and that love to a business. And I think that's where sometimes the confusion and the separation comes into play, thinking that if I'm passionate about something, then it's automatically convertible to a business that's going to function and return profit. That's not the case. That love, that passion, that joy has to then be converted and sculpted into a business that does all of the things we talked about.
Thank you, Charles, for that, because I think to your point, I'm passionate, I love what I do. At the end of the day, when you have to go present to banks and investors, they want to know, like, what's the numbers, what's behind it, how are you solving the problem, and how we're going to make our money back. And I hear your passion, and I hear it, Larvetta, but we have to recognize that. What I want to do right now is, if you're listening into this episode, Charles Johnson, dealmaker, and I want people to know how they could, like, Charles, do you offer consulting? How do they get in contact with you? Because somebody on here is building $1 million deal and they need a Charles Johnson to ink that deal, close that deal, because we have the deal maker on Black Businesses Matter. So if you can tell me how people can connect with you. I know you've mentioned you got a book, so I just want you to take this opportunity and just sell you, Charles, sell you.
Well, right now, Larvetta, it's funny. People always say, well, are you looking for more clients? And like, I'm up to my eyeballs in work, but I also have recently created an opportunity for me to sort of reach small to mid-cap businesses with a series of seminars that I've conducted. I really just recently started doing this because people have asked me to do this, and I haven't been doing it as frequently as I should be. And I did my last one here in Chicago. I had probably a group of about 10 or 15 individuals that had come out. And I'm going to give an email address that I can share with the group. And the young lady who coordinates those out of my office, her name is Robin. Her email address is real simple. It's Robin, ROBIN, at ideal, IDEAL, concept, CONCEPT, So that's Robin at ideal, concept, GRP, short for group.com. And if you just ping her with an email, she can give sort of information for both online and in-person seminar. And then based upon sort of the need and the opportunity, Larvetta, I'll be more than happy to sort of set aside one-on-one type of consultation. But I think that the best value would be participation in some of the sort of the small to mid-sized business opportunities that we've just created. And we're starting to do them more frequently, but we're looking to do them on a monthly basis. And they're both available both in person and online.
That's awesome, Charles, because I love that you said, I'm up to here, and you showed your hand, of course, with business, because that's what we talk about, thriving Black businesses. It's okay that we're not out here starving, right? There are some businesses that are struggling, but knowing that you're building a thriving business, but you are using that time to be able to help those in need. And I love that you are doing that. So if you are a business and you're looking to scale, or perhaps you're looking to start, please reach out to one of his staff members, Robin, that he gave us the email address so that you can be a part of that next cohort, whether that's virtual or whether that is live if you were in Chicago. It's really important that you have this level of advisement and mentors because it really does help your business. And I love that you're doing that, Charles. So as much as I could talk to you all day, because I just love who you are and what you stand for, and you have never chased money, what I do want to ask, because we ask this with every guest, is why do Black businesses matter?
I think that Black business specifically matters in America for this reason. I don't believe that America will be its very best until Black Americans get their opportunity to fairly operate and compete in the free market. And that's important because we have so much creativity to bring. We have so much ingenuity to bring. We have so many ideas that are untapped. Imagine sort of the problem solving and sort of the pairing between unmet needs and goods and services if there was fair opportunity and adequate access to capital for Black businesses to start and sustain. Our communities wouldn't look the way that they do. Our school systems in major African-American communities would not be the way that they are. Our health conditions would not be what they are because we would have ability to generate enough wealth and have access to healthcare. Our housing situation wouldn't be what it is. The education level of our children would not be what it is. So I say what's best for Black business and what's best for America is the participation and the inclusion of African-American businesses to not only participate, but to contribute. In my conversation by saying it's important for Black businesses to contribute to America, not participate in America. When you participate in America, you're being invited to the party and you don't necessarily bring anything. So your value is as such. But when you contribute to America, you're bringing a set of value and you're helping to build what it is. And so for me, it's important that we build positive businesses that solve problems that are, in my opinion, highly valuable, not just to sort of transfer that wealth to our future generations, but to contribute to the country that we live in. And when we do that, we get the respect as people. We get the respect as Black men and women and Black children for having the ability to sort of contribute. And I'll end it by saying, no one wants to have to beg for someone else to take care of them in their communities. For me, it's important that Black businesses thrive so that we're able to take care of our own communities and take care of our generations to come. That's why Black businesses are important to me.
I've never heard anyone say that like that, contributing. And I think that was so powerful. Like I'm sitting over here like, oh my gosh, we've got to lead with that because I love that. What we also do for every guest, because we believe that joy has not been displayed for Black people. And so we ask this question of what brings you joy?
What brings me joy is waking up in the morning and having the ability to do whatever I decide to do. So for me, it's freedom. I think every human being wants freedom. So joy for me is freedom. Joy for me is having the ability to be able to send my daughter to the school of her choice. Joy for me is being able to give my mother access to the healthcare that she needs when she needs it. Joy for me is being able to solve problems for my neighbors and for my community. Joy for me is being a living example of waking up and being everything that God intended me to be. So to me, it's freedom. And I think that no one will really experience true joy if they are not free.
Ooh, Charles, that's good. And I've heard other guests say freedom, and every time it is said, it makes me feel a certain kind of way. I get chills every time I bring guests on. So for me, I get to learn and glean from all of our guests, and this has been exciting. As we close on another episode, I really want to reinforce your email address for Robin. I want you to just repeat that again, just so that people who are tuning in and listening and want to participate and could be able to contribute into this market on how they can participate in what you have going on. So if you can repeat that email address.
Sure. That's Robin, Robin, commonly spelled, at ideal, IDEAL, concept, CONCEPT, GRP.com. Again, that's Robin at idealconceptgrp.com.
As we wrap up another episode, I do want, because I just think you're so powerful, and I'm grateful to have a friendship with you and have mentorship with you. And so we typically ask these 3 tips, and I know some of them you've said throughout the interview, but I do want to take this opportunity as we close to give 3 tips that you believe businesses need to look at as we go beyond COVID, as we go into this digital metaverse that you just spoke of. Like, give us 3 tips that would help a middle market business or even a startup business or a business that's just starting up.
I say a startup or middle. I think that either of them would probably have to understand a couple of these principles. And to me, they're sort of basic. One, have indisputable value. And when I say indisputable value, like solve a big problem. 2, from the very beginning, when you start a business, given everything that we've seen over the last couple of years, think global from the onstart. Think global application. Can the business that I start in Chicago be applied in Tennessee, Nashville, Rome, Italy, anywhere on the earth? Does it have global application? So 1, what is my good and my services? Does it have tremendous amount of value? 2, does it have global application? Meaning, does it work the same way in Chicago that it'll work anywhere else? So Amazon works the same way. Facebook works the same way. Google works the same way. iPhone works the same way. So when you start talking about development of product, does it work the same way? And then how do I scale it? How do I scale it? Meaning, once I've created it, what do I need to do? What resources do I need to do to make it larger, more powerful, more accessible? Those are the things that you should start thinking about. And then my last one, you said 3, but I'm going to give you 4. How do I get out of it? What's my exit plan? Do I stay in it and create a $1 billion business that I transfer over to my kids? Do I really want to operate something that big? Do I build it to a point and do I sell it? Do I build it to a point and sort of merge it with another company? I always tell people, never walk into something not knowing how you're going to get out of it. So those are the sort of 4 legs on the stool that I would challenge anyone to think about. Undisputable value, global application from the beginning. How do I scale it? And then how do I exit? Those are the 4 things that I would tell any budding entrepreneur at any level, whether they're a small company or a mid-cap company. Those would be the things that I would be thinking about.
Awesome, Charles. You guys, thank you, Charles, for your wisdom, your experience, and your knowledge over the years. You have no idea how much I appreciate you, and more importantly, and how much you have contributed to the world, because you have done just that. And so I'm grateful for that. And I just want for all of our listeners to understand that this is literally a deal maker, like for real, for real. He is the guy that you want on your team when you just don't know and you just want that expert advice. He is considered the deal maker, the convener. I love it. Charles Johnson of the Ideal Concept Group. If you want to connect with him, I know that Charles is on some of the platforms, but as he shared, he is at the top with what he can handle from a capacity standpoint. So if you want to connect further with him, he did provide email address to his colleague and teammate if you want to participate in what he has going on. And again, Charles, thank you so much. I appreciate you more than you know. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Black Businesses Matter. We hope that you will continue to share this podcast with people you know. And you know what? If you think there's somebody that we should interview, send us a note, email us, and let us hear from you if there's somebody you think that should be on our podcast. We love to hear from you. Again, thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this week on Black Businesses Matter podcast. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen so you will never miss a show. You can also follow us on social media at the L3 Agency and at Larvetta Speaks. If you love the show, leave a rating so that we can continue to bring you impactful episodes. You can also take the pledge and order our merch at our website at thell3agency.com. THEL3agency.com. Thanks for listening and see you next week.